Are you looking for a way to add more protein to your diet? Or maybe you're looking for an interesting take on dessert, snack, or even breakfast? Well, I've got the perfect solution for you here. This is my protein pudding. I have mocha and pumpkin pie spice latte, but it's very versatile. I'll be sharing the base recipe for this as well as these two specific flavors. So if you'd like to see how this is done, stick around because it's coming up next. Hello and welcome to my journey. My name is Roy. I'm a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that can help me on a weight loss journey and hopefully you as well. Now, as you saw from the thumbnail, today I am doing my protein pudding. I had mentioned it during my live weigh-in and there was some interest, so I thought I would bring this one out. Now, there is a base recipe and I will go over that. And then there are a million things you can do with it from there. So I'm gonna give you two of my favorite options, but you can do whatever you want and I'll tell you how you can play around with it. There will be a list of variations underneath the base recipe, but you can really let your imagination go wild and do as you want. Now I'm gonna go over first the ingredients for the base recipe. Here I have 3/4 of a cup of non-fat plain Greek yogurt. Now, if you're like me, and you don't really read the labels, I ended up picking up non-Greek yogurt and I wanted Greek. I wanted that thickness. If that happens to you, if you find that either they don't have non-fat Greek yogurt or you've accidentally picked up the wrong one, all you need to do is basically what I do when I make my cream cheese. You have a bowl, you put a strainer in, you put some coffee filters or cheesecloth or whatever in there and let it drain. To get Greek yogurt from regular yogurt, you would just go maybe like about 5 to 6 hours because you don't want it to turn into the cream cheese. You just want to remove some of the whey and thicken up the yogurt. So if that ever happens to you, there's a little tip on how to get Greek yogurt anyway. Here I have 1/3 cup of protein powder. Now I have the cafe latte over here and I have the chocolate over here. I'm using the Premier Protein. This is not sponsored. I'm just letting you know which one I used. It comes out to about 1.5 scoops. You want around 30 grams, whatever protein powder you're using. Just make sure you're measuring it with the scoop. So that way you know, usually it's listed in whatever app as so many scoops. So you want to make sure this comes out to 1.5 scoops for about 30 grams or 1/3 cup. I'm using the cafe latte here because I'm going to be making one of these as a pumpkin pie latte protein pudding. The other one I'm using chocolate, and that one I'm going to be making into a mocha protein pudding. But as I said, there are other options. There is peanut butter and chocolate. There's a million other things you can do, but that will be in the recipe. But you can get by with just using vanilla. It will slightly mute some of the flavors, but it's not that big of a deal. If you just wanted to do a pumpkin pie protein pudding, then you could just use the vanilla and that would be fine. Here I have 2 tablespoons of almond milk, and one of them is in a slightly larger bowl, but I'll show you why in a moment. And here I have 2 teaspoons of sugar replacement. You can use whatever kind you want, and you can use as much or as little as you want. I find about 2 teaspoons good, but depending on the one you're making, you may want a little more, you may want a little less. But those are the ingredients for the base recipe. You could just use those with whatever flavored protein powder you want, and you'd be all set. If you want to change it up a little bit, feel free. But the base recipe for this is 3/4 cup of non-fat plain Greek yogurt, 1/3 cup of protein powder, 2 tablespoons of almond milk, and 2 teaspoons of sugar replacement. And if you want your pudding to be a little firmer, you can reduce the almond milk as well. So you can play around with these ingredients. The only ones I wouldn't change too much are the yogurt and the protein powder. Now for the pumpkin pie latte protein pudding, I'm using 2 tablespoons of pumpkin puree and 1/2 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. And if you don't have pumpkin pie spice, you can just use cinnamon. That should be fine. Now if you wanted to change that one up, You could add maybe 2 tablespoons of mashed banana and maybe some chocolate protein powder and do kind of like a chocolate covered banana pudding. You could change it to applesauce. For our mocha protein pudding, I have 2 teaspoons of unsweetened cocoa powder and 1 teaspoon of instant coffee. And depending on how strong you wanted that coffee flavor in here, you could add a little bit more. If you didn't want it that strong, add a little bit less. As I said, play around with it until you get it to your taste. All right, so I don't really have a lot of shuffling around to do, but I am going to move some of these aside so I can make one at a time and not have all of the ingredients out here together. For this, you're going to want a whisk. I'm going to just whisk it in this bowl. It may get a little full, but it doesn't make too much more than what's in here. So to the yogurt, I'm going to add the protein powder, almond milk, sugar replacement, pumpkin puree, and pumpkin pie spice. Then I'm just going to carefully whisk this all together. I'm going to get some of that protein powder wet before I try mixing it too aggressively and get that protein powder spraying all over the place. But you're just going to whisk this all together until it is one homogeneous color, and you want to make sure you don't see any lumps of the protein powder left, and that's all there is to it. Now you could eat it right away. I like having it prepared ahead of time and storing it in the fridge, letting it firm up a little bit. But let me clean off my whisk and we'll move on to the mocha. Now for the mocha, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. Why I had this in a slightly larger bowl is because I'm going to microwave this so I can incorporate my unsweetened cocoa powder and my instant coffee a little bit more easily than if I just put it in there. You could just put it in there. You might have to whisk it a little bit more, but let me get this. Well, let me get this warmed up about 15 to 20 seconds. All right, so our milk is heated up. To that, I'm going to add in the instant coffee, cocoa powder, and sugar replacement. I'm just adding the sugar replacement just so it can melt in a little bit more easily, but you don't have to. Then I'm just going to whisk this up and get that coffee and cocoa fully hydrated in there. Okay, so then I am going to take my yogurt. I'm going to add in the protein powder and our cocoa coffee mixture. And again, just get that protein powder pushed down, get it wet a little bit so it doesn't go flying all over, or you can just use a bigger bowl. Don't try to be a hero like me. Okay, so just whisk that until you get everything blended in well. And again, just whisk it until you don't see any clumps of the protein powder in there. And it only takes maybe 30 seconds or so. Now this one I would definitely refrigerate just because I warmed up the milk and I want to get that cooled down again. But that's all there is to it. There's the mocha and the pumpkin pie spice latte. Now, as I said in the recipe, there will be a lot of variations, but you can easily come up with your own. Play around with this. Make something that you're going to enjoy. Now, you can serve this as your dessert, or you can have it as breakfast. For the pumpkin pie one, I might add a little crumble of some graham crackers on top, but that's not really necessary. But you can play around with it. There will also be additional toppings that you can add if you wanted to. But that's all there is to it, making my protein pudding easy as can be. As I said, there is a base recipe, and I'm going to give you the nutrition facts for the base recipe, and I'll also give you the nutrition facts for the mocha and the pumpkin pie spice latte. And there's really not too much variation in a lot of the categories, but there is a little bit. Now this makes one serving. For the base recipe, it's going to be 2 Better Balanced Bites or WW points. I don't think there's anything in there that is any different. I don't think you get protein powder for free now. So it should be the same on both. I'm on the Healthy Better Balanced plan, which is kind of similar to their old WW Blue plan, which is around where their current plan is. But I do have a list of the 0-point foods from WW, so I try to subtract those if there are any in here and get as close as I can to what their points would currently be. Now for the base recipe, if you're following calories, the calories would be 206. And if you were following macros, the fat would be 1.9 grams. Saturated fat would be 0.8 grams. Protein would be 40.6 grams. Carbs would be 15.4 grams. Fiber would be 0 grams. And sugars would be 5.8 grams as I made it. If you fluctuate any with the almond milk or the sugar replacement, that could change. But those are the nutrition facts for the base recipe. So you can just simply make the base recipe with whatever your favorite flavor of protein powder is, and it will be delicious. And have it for breakfast, have it for dessert, or have it as a snack. Either way, it really is a great way to fill up and get some protein in there, so that makes you feel more full. Now for the mocha, same thing. We'd get 2 Better Balanced Bites or WW points. And if you were following calories, the calories would go up slightly to 224. And if you're following macros, the fat would be 2.2 grams. Saturated fat would be 0.8 grams. Protein would be 41.4 grams. Carbs would be 18.9 grams. Fiber would be 1.4 grams. And sugars would be 5.8 grams. And that is for the mocha. For my pumpkin pie spice latte, again, it's going to be 2 Better Balanced Bites or WW points. Now, if you are following calories, the calories would be 220. And if you are following macros, the fat would be 2.1 grams. Saturated fat would be 0.9 grams. Protein would be 41 grams. Carbs would be 19.1 grams. Fiber would be 1.8 grams. And sugars would be 6.8 grams for my pumpkin pie spice latte. So they don't stray too much from the base recipe, just because you don't really have to add much else to get a different flavor. But as I said, play around with it, come up with things that you want. This would be great for meal prep because you can make these and store them for at least 7 days. So you can have them ready on hand whenever you need a quick breakfast, a snack, or a dessert. Now, if you enjoyed this recipe and this video, I'd appreciate you doing the usual. Like, subscribe, comment, share, and hit that notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video. Now, if you want the recipe for this, it will of course be listed on my blog. It will be the base recipe, and then underneath it, the different alternatives that I've come up with, but you may come up with more. But I will link directly to that recipe down in the description box. There's also a link to my blog itself if you want to find any of my recipes. Also in the description box, there's my Amazon storefront. If I've used anything that you are interested in, it could be there. There's a link to my cookbook. My 2 stores are listed down there, my Fourth Wall and my Zazzle store, so that if you can support the channel by picking up a little item, that is much appreciated. And you will also find my social media down there if you'd like to follow me over there. Okay, now I'm going to go put these in the fridge and let them firm up a bit. That's the way I like it. A little firmer, a little colder, kind of more like a pudding. But however you have it, you're going to enjoy it. And I hope you'll be enjoying some yourself very soon. So until next time, bye.